Hey, it's Akhtar Khan from Reaching Excellence. In this video, I'm talking about why cash flow is important when it comes to property investing. So stay tuned. Okay, so let's talk about why cash flow is super important when it comes to property investing. So I want to talk to you about the old model, the old vanilla way that people used to do buy-to-lets, which was that they'd buy a property, they'd sit in it for a long time, it'd make a couple of £100 a month, and it'd just literally wash its face. Well, with all the changes that have gone on in recent years, things like stronger rules for tenants, and it's harder to get tenants out. You need to do more work inside of properties to make sure they comply to current standards. And you've also got Section 24 tax changes that have made buy-to-let, it's almost killed buy-to-let or the traditional way of doing buy-to-let. So cash flow and having high amounts of cash flow in your portfolio is super, super important, okay? So let's talk about how we can get more cash flow and a couple of reasons why. I'm going to give you a couple of strategies here, okay? Look, in my experience, okay, I've been investing in property since 2002 and I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly. When we're in an economic downturn like what we are right now, it's highly probable that your tenants are going to run into financial difficulties. They may get furloughed, they may get laid off, they might, just not be able to afford the rent. So having high cash flow is super important. The old vanilla way of doing things with just a couple of £100 a month just doesn't wash its face. And if anything, it's going to put you in a negative situation or negative cash flow situation, which you don't want, okay? Because that means you're going to have to subsidize your portfolio. You're going to have to take money out of your pocket, your wages or whatever it is, your salary, your business, to sustain your portfolio. Your portfolio should be able to sustain itself and be able to weather the storm. So it's really important that you invest for cash flow. So when it comes to doing property deals, you want to be having a balanced portfolio. You want to have your kind of regular buy-to-lets, but you want to have some properties in there that are going to give you high cash flow, and you want to be employing high cash flow strategies. So HMOs is one way of doing things. Rent-to-rent is another way of doing things. I think that personally rent-to-rent is a great strategy, but it's not somewhere you want to stay for a long time. So let's talk about rent-to-rent for a second, okay? Rent-to-rent is a super easy strategy to employ because in essence what you're doing is you're taking a property off of another landlord, you're negotiating and reducing the rent so that they're getting the certainty and the peace of mind of not having to worry about it, not having to worry about dealing with the tenants, not having to worry about voids and all that stuff, and you're charging a higher rent without actually owning the property. So you're kind of managing it and controlling it and taking a higher fee. Now this is great for subsidizing your own portfolio and bringing in more cash flow, but it's not a permanent situation. So one of the things that you can do with the right kind of rent-to-rent deals or even lease option type deals is that you can get properties that are going to generate you high amounts of cash. I've had lease option deals and also rent-to-rent deals that have made me in excess of £1,000 a month profit as single lets. This is not HMOs. So if you've got a couple of those in the background, that's going to help you to subsidize your existing portfolio, and it's going to help you to weather the storm if your tenants get into any kind of difficulty. So it's really important that if you've got, let's say, half a dozen properties, that if one or two tenants weren't able to pay, the portfolio can sustain itself as a whole. Now that's really, really important because I see so many landlords that can sometimes get unstuck. And if you go back to the last recession, so many landlords and so many portfolios just literally went under because people were buying properties, but they didn't have enough cash flow. I remember once going to a property investment networking event, and a guy came up to me and asked me what I did. And it was the typical old peeing contest of how many properties have you got? And this guy had 50 properties, but they're all up north and they were making like £50 to £150 a month cash flow. I remember thinking, that's pretty crap and rubbish. What happens if your tenants don't pay? What happens if a boiler goes? A year's worth of your rental income is going to get wiped out. And these were in areas where the capital growth wasn't that brilliant. I had way fewer properties, but my portfolio was giving me way higher cash flow. And in fact, I think at the time I had something like 18 properties. I was making like a ton more cash flow than his 50 properties did. And the thing is, it's not about the number of properties you got. It's all about cash flow. We're in this for the money. This is what we're doing. Our property business is a business, and that's how you got to treat it. It's there to make profit. You want to make profit so that you want to have high cash flow so it can sustain itself. But also, if you decide that you want to live off that portfolio, you need to make sure that you have even more cash flow coming in so that you can sustain what your living expenses are. So you need to make sure you've got enough in there to live off, but you need to have more than that in there to cover for when you have those stormy days where tenants can't pay, you have a boiler go wrong or fails on you, or you've got some maintenance or something else that needs to be done and you've got to cover for voids. So cash flow and focusing on cash flow is super, super important. The second thing is, when you haven't got those stormy days, if you've got high amounts of cash flow coming in and you're covering your living expenses in a surplus, you can then start saving that money up and using it towards deposits. So rent to rent is a great strategy to get started. If you used to do rent to rent HMOs, it's a great way of getting high cash flow in and taking that money out and pooling it so you can then use it for a deposit, so you can then start buying more properties or buying these rent to rents or lease options off of the vendors. So cash flow in terms of property is super, super important. You must flow for cash flow. So you must focus for cash flow, and you must make sure that your portfolio can weather the storm if you've got tenants not paying. But in an ideal scenario, you want to be in a place where you've got surplus cash that you can start using for deposits. So guys, I hope you found this video useful. Please like and subscribe. Put your comments below. Let me know what kind of things that you do to increase your cash flow, or if you've ever had cash flow challenges before, what sort of things have gone on. And if you've got any other questions, again, post them in the comments and I'll do another video. Take care, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.